Welcome, friends, to Conversations with My Teachers. This is a place where I'm just pressing record on conversations I'm otherwise having with dear friends and teachers who have been a real inspiration on the path. Today, I'm chatting with a dear friend and Zen teacher, Ryushin. Ryushin was a former psychiatrist turned 35-year Zen renunciant monk. He was the former abbot of Zen Mountain Monastery, and he and I have been doing weekly conversations just like this for the past 2 years. He was the real impetus for me wanting to record some of these. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with Ryushin. Not that it changes anything.
Here we go. Now it's real.
10 minutes later.
Uh,
Um, I was curious to talk about fear,
hmm.
and especially 2 points where I feel that. And the first was around spending more time in the spiritual journey and not knowing where it's going, not knowing what the outcome is, and
Mhm.
um, fear in placing myself at almost placing myself on the altar
Mhm.
of, yeah, of
Yeah.
dedication and devotion.
Yeah. What came to mind, Will, the moment you started talking about this is that famous quote by Winnicott, the for benefit of others, the child pediatric trained psychoanalyst, who categorically says we're not afraid of the unknown. We're afraid of something that already happened to us. And so, and at the same time, as a matter of fact, even this morning, I made a pledge to myself that whenever I come against these um, uh, very potently sounding statements by wise people that I question that. So like, maybe worth looking at it from both angles. There is something to it that, if I'm really honest with myself about looking directly at the things that I'm afraid of, I can name them. I can name, and they usually collapse into things that I absolutely have experienced
Sure.
and that were just so insanely and categorically damaging and uh, dangerous and anti-life that I get it. I understand why I'm afraid. So like, helplessness. I am afraid of helplessness. I'm afraid of what helplessness feels like, where it goes. I, I, I feel the annihilation and negation that it creates, that it basically communicates. But that's not a fantasy that happened,
Right.
you know, and
Mm.
happened, and it was moving in a direction where very likely my system, my physiology, or what was available at the time was recognizing that I was on the verge of either cessation, annihilation, or just exquisite pain, you know. So that that's real. So it's like when I'm asking myself, am I afraid of the unknown? Really?
Right.
I really, I can't, I don't know.
Right.
It's like,
Good.
so it's that.
So this is interesting.
Yeah.
So in let's say in the Buddhist system,
Hmm.
when you're fully present with all the pain you've ever felt,
Yeah.
that becomes freedom.
Bingo.
Interesting.
This week, I got hammered. I got hammered by something ancient that lives within me that's very somatic. And then and it's not that I'm fatalistic or pessimistic and saying that, this thing, this quality of my body will never go away, because very likely it won't. It's something that I am. And over the years, quite a bit of the work, of the deep meditative work, was, about releasing myself and, surrendering. But part of that surrender was towards this experience. So simultaneously, there's freedom exactly overlapping with the place of just exquisite discomfort and pain.
Mm.
But it's absolutely clear to me that the more of that I can allow to enter, the less I suffer.
Yeah, and it's interesting. When I was at the monastery,
Yeah.
what really stood out to me was how much pain you were invited to sit in without reacting.
Yeah.
Um, how many hours of unmoving, unwavering attention you were invited to experience, and how free I felt after that.
Yeah.
Um, and the
Totally.
fear, yeah,
Totally.
yeah, the fear that I'm speaking to is like, how do you know that hours of meditation and hours of
Mhm.
practice, um, and letting go, like this also moves into the place of like generosity
Yeah.
and
Oh, absolutely.
self-service. How do you know that that's the path when the whole world is built around consumption and
Yeah.
acquisition?
Yeah. I, 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 it has to be through trial and error.
Yeah,
I think that we intuit something, and I think that that is also the genius of the good Dharma, is that it's not trying to teach you something that is foreign to your own experience. It usually, if it's effective, it connects with something that you already know, or intuit, or that it's not very foreign. But also, having said that, there will be people who hear the Dharma and they won't hear what is being pointed to. But then, you know, there is a trust, there is an understanding and trust enough to start sampling, tasting the experience and seeing what happens. But it's here that it really is important that when we're rolling out the practices, the most effective way I think that they're rolled out is to point immediately where the response is showing something about relaxation, delight, acceptance of yourself, of this particular experience, rather than waiting for something to happen. That I'm grinding through some discipline in order to become a more free person. No, in sitting quietly, still, silently with myself, can I convincingly point to your experience and say, there, that's the delight. That's, that sense of just being with yourself with no thrill, no promise, just wakefulness of your senses, insanity of your mind. Let go of the promise right there, right there. That's what we're looking for. Feel it, taste it, and then ask yourself, what would that look like if all of your life was just the expanding version of that moment of intimacy, of freedom, of liking yourself, of turning towards yourself, and feeling, feeling what that is? Because I think that in the end, the people who practice and mature within that are people who tap into that.
right.
You know.
So interesting. It's like there's two things come up. The first is just how masochistic that can be,
Mhm.
especially
Oh,
when you're like, all I felt was discomfort. Ooh, what
yeah,
is the like? What does it mean to be present
yeah,
and to be excited about presence even when it is
painful,
completely
actually.
uncomfortable?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then how counter it runs to all the rest of our lives, where like 1 hour equals one, this amount of
$100.
money or this amount of
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
likes or this amount of favoritism or um yeah, like it's completely unquantifiable.
You've
It,
set up the stage. When we were starting the conversation, I said to myself, I have to tell him the story that was on
okay.
my mind this morning, and that I kind of, it was incomplete. So like you're going to be victimized now, but you gave me
Okay.
complete window to doing this. Because, this is two things. The preliminary one that is um, um, central. One of the central pillars of the Dharma is Buddha's recognition how insane this project is. How so counter to the ordinary, conventional, proliferating, cultural, historical, human uh, uh, processing, and meaning, how crazy it really is vis-a-vis what we consider as normality. And it's just that when we follow through the normality, we realize how cataclysmically um, destructive it is to us. So, there is that. That's the reason for Buddha's hesitation to teach. So when he sees clearly what the human condition is in exactly the way that you're describing, remember, he pauses and he says, this is crazy. I'm not going to teach. Like, I'm going to get crucified for doing this unless I'm really skillful. And
Mm.
fortunately, he was very skillful. But there's something else that happened this morning, which is, this. I remembered like this week when I'm teaching in the morning, I'm looking at his life, and remember that if it's historical true or if it's a mythical representation, you know, the path of the Dharma for him begins where he fulfills all of the ordinary expectations. So,
Right.
this morning, I challenge the people in the program and say, shape your life in an ideal way. Go, let's dream it for yourself. How much money do you need in the saving accounts? How much security? How much investments that quote unquote will guarantee you passage forward? Okay, we'll take care of that. How about your relationship to your children and the friends who will be there for you when you're dying and all along that? How about climate? You're going to be in Bahamas. Okay, how about loving from a partner who's deeply... All of it is absolutely in place. Hell, let's go further. You have power to globalize politics and make the earth be a peaceful place, ecologically sound, the species come back. You are in a powerful position to organize all of that. And where I went with it is I just stayed with the Buddha, because I said, in a certain way, he is portrayed as a person who had that.
Mhm. Yeah.
He was absolutely done with accomplishments that would be considered normal human signs of completion, whatever. And yet, it was almost at that moment that he revealed how problematic the whole thing was. And that was the pivot point. But we could say, he's really crazy. And so this is the thing I didn't say in the morning, that for most people, pursuit of that conventional way of becoming at peace, at ease, happy, pleasurable, with conventional way of seeing their humanity will be the sum total of a human life. And there is no problem with that will. That's not a critique. Dharma does not critique that. As a matter of fact, I remember this was very real contention point between me and Daido. Because, after being at the monastery for a few years, I was realizing that people were coming to the monastery to develop good friendships, have a guarantee of a roof over their head, good meal, beautiful setting, some meditation in the morning and the evening. But were they really digging to try to resolve the question of life and death and age? No. And 90% was proved right. They stayed there for 2-3 years and then went off and hit the Wall Street, made $5 billion and whatever, and life went on. And I would go to Daido and say, like, this is crazy, we should like put them out of the monastery. He said, come down, come down, come down. It's like, it's not, in the end, as a Dharmic person, as a Buddhist person, you're supporting everybody
Right.
on wherever they are on that path. But the dharmic, the radical dharmic appreciation is that go ahead, put all the pieces in place, and that's where you're going to start feeling the existential anxiety and the sense of incompleteness and dissatisfaction and the profound longing, and you really will start feeling an access point to suffering.
And I think that never goes away. Like,
Right?
yeah. Okay. Well,
Yeah. You know.
I'm getting the sense. And I'm curious, we orient our lives towards protection and accumulation and whatever it is. And then as we go deeper into this work, we start to orient more towards how do we be of service,
Mhm.
um, And I think I told you a little bit about this project that I'm doing where we're raising all this money to just create chaotic joy
Mm,
and make people's day. Like how do we subvert people's expectations of like capitalism, of trade, of I'm doing this so I get this,
mm,
and and use it just to create sparkles. And in so doing, mm, again, there's another trust. There's a trust that like it's not about me,
mm,
it's about the collective. And there's a dissolving that I'm finding in that. Like,
mm.
um, hmm, and I forgot my question.
Well, I'll take it where I want to go with it.
Okay.
Remember that none of this, it's kind of coming back to the community's koan. Medicine and sickness heal each other. The whole world is medicine. Where do you find yourself? We have to remember is that none of this
Wait,
is
I'm sorry. Wait, would you one more time? Medicine and sickness heal?
each other. The whole world is medicine. Where do you find yourself? It's a positive way of
Oh,
framing. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's one of the juicy ones. But where I'm
oh,
going to go with it, Will, is the fact that there is no fixed reality. That moment of chaos is deliberately oriented the way you framed it against certain capitalistic values and expectations, and you're trying to subvert that, stimulate it, enjoy it, entertain it, highlight it. But remember that at a certain moment, that can become precisely the toxicity. And it will
absolutely.
completely depend on where do you find yourself? Where does the person, how do we relate to all of this? Because, the notion of materialism, the notion of the three lords of materialism, or as I say, there's like about five or six that I like to work with, is that we will use things and money, we will use relationship, we will use ideas, and we will use experiences in a conventional way to reestablish and reassure stability and certain knowability and predictability. Does this mean that those things are intrinsically problematic? No. Once again, it all depends how I see money, how I use experience, how I use relationship. Can I use this relationship as a way of opening ourselves to the mystery of two human beings communicating? Absolutely, yes. Can we use this relationship as a way to start overly nodding to each other in a great confirmation of our wisdom and, cutting edge. You understand what I mean? So it's like this is
Totally.
what makes Dharma so insanely demanding because it's like no other religion does that.
And the
Most of the
lines
religions are trying to give you some something to lean against, which is infallible, and there is no such thing in the Dharma.
and the line is so fine.
Oh,
Like
the
it,
deeper you go, the finer it gets.
yeah. Yeah. Right. And I've been sort of dealing with this in terms of how much social media do I want to have? Like, I really don't want, it doesn't bring me any joy to post. It doesn't bring me any joy to interact with it at all. But I'm recognizing that a certain amount is helpful.
Of
And then
course,
how do I stay conscious with my ego as it wants
of
to
course.
play around in all of this?
But
And
notice the discernment. Notice your dedication and your almost now second nature instinct. Keep questioning.
right. And
Keep
so how do you stay aware of that? You put it like toxicity. How do you
well. So now pull back because I think on at the moment you may not be able to pull it off. I think this is where over time,
yeah.
literally over time, and I didn't plan it that way, but I think I shared this with you. I have metrics. I think there is a way of knowing that you're moving as a being, as an apparently isolated individual being named Ryushin. If I am heading in the direction that I understand I want myself go to,
Mhm.
in the sense of liberation, I think certain things are available. One, I will become less and less afraid and less anxious
Yeah.
with everything
Yeah.
because I'll be presenting less and less target for impermanence. because the holding, the attachments, the solidity will be being released. I'll be improvising. I'll be able and capable in a loving, non-contrived way, truly be attuned and relaxed into the flow of things, which will mean I'll be less afraid. I'll be less anxious. Okay.
It's almost like you're expanding the target, but
Yeah,
less worried when people hit it.
exactly. Or it passes through, we would say,
Right.
yeah, go ahead. The
Right.
arrow will go right through the heart, now the other way. That's
Mm.
that's how life is going to be. Two, the world will become more and more abundant. The shift will be from scarcity to abundance, which is really the same thing as fear, but from a different perspective. Like you'll start recognizing that this you're not going to run out of anything that's really of importance.
Right.
Even when you run out of breath, it's going to be at exactly the right moment.
Well,
Do you
that
know what I mean?
brings us back to trust. Brings us
You
back.
got it. That's right.
Yeah.
So then trust increases, gratitude, heartfelt gratitude increases, awe increases in the mystery. I mean, you'll just be stunned by the beauty and the insanity of the world. And remember that I'm talking, this is expanding. So, like,
Right.
what are the fucking limits of fearlessness?
Yeah.
And then you'll become more interested in others,
Mm.
more and more and more and more, and specifically others in relationality to you.
Yeah.
And then there are other things. I think your sense of humor goes up.
Maybe then it's the nihilism that helps.
Yeah. So I mean, so here it is. So it's like, if I'm engaging this in a way that is aligned with these paradigms that we're setting up, then those things will manifest. And that tells me they may not happen immediately, but over time, it's measurable. And what's fascinating about it is that, if you, on a practical level, you have people who really engage Dharma practice, others recognize that in them, sometimes before they recognize themselves,
Yeah.
you know. So it communicates. It's, like I am actually making a difference in the world.
Yeah. And I've noticed all those changes in, yeah, myself and others. And I mean, yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
listen, over the few years that we've known each other, yeah, I can see that's where
Yeah.
this is going, and I can see that in others too,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is also a confirmation. And I think this is where a healthy community
Yeah.
helps itself.
Ryushin,
Amen.
thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. Good luck on the retreats this week.
Love you and see you soon,
All right.
hopefully. Be
Bye.
good. Bye bye.